Welcome to the Polarion Integration with Software Version Control Overview topic. In this lesson, we'll discuss what software version control is and the use cases for integrating Polarion with software version control tools. Software version control is a component of software configuration management, which allows the management of changes to source. Code software version control enables software teams to work on source code collaboratively. Polarion has integrations with many software version control solutions such as SVN, Git, GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket. Other integrations, for example Perforce or Plastic SCM, can be installed via the Polarion extension site. The connectors to the different software version control solutions will provide different sets of capabilities. First, all the connectors will provide the ability to link commits and their associated revision to a Polarion work item. These commits can be seen under the linked revision section of the work item. The linking can be done in two ways. You can do it by adding the ID of the work item to the commit message, which triggers Polarion to add the linked revision automatically. If you forgot to add the work item ID to the commit message, you can still manually select any revision or commit from the work item and create the linked division. Then the SVN and the Git connector will allow the use of linked resources. These are used to link the Polarion work item to a source code construct. For example, a function or class developers can add a special tag that includes the work item ID to a comment in the source code. When the code gets committed, Polarion will create the linked resource, which will show the piece of code that's linked to the work item. Polarion provides a parser for Java, C, and XML code. Other parsers can be added or created. Lastly, the GitLab connector will allow the creation of Word requests from Polarion work items and the ability to follow their status. The Polarion and software version control integration can be used to cover different types of use cases. Here are some common examples your software team is using Polarion to track the resolution of defects. Once the defect is created and source code needs to be modified, all changes done to the impacted source code can be traced to the defect. In the second use case, you're working on a safely related software project where traceability from software requirements to source code must be shown to generate complete traceability down to the source code. The integration can be used to parse linked resources from the source code and trace them to the software requirements. And in a third use case, your software team is using Polarion to manage their agile-based development projects where GitLab is used to manage the source code when your team is done with the user story, which is typically done on a dedicated branch. They can initiate the creation of a merge request and GitLab to, for example, the master branch and track its status from Polarion. There are, of course, many other use cases that you could cover with the integration, but for now let's look at each of these three use cases in more detail. The first use cases where Polarion is used to track the resolution of defects associated to source code. The defect is created in Polarion, and after analysis, the software development team gets assigned to it and then starts working on the source code. Once the source code is updated, the developers commit the code to their software version control solution and add the defect ID to the commit message. Committing the code creates a new revision of the code and updates the defect in Polarion with a new linked revision. The defect can then be analyzed and verified to make sure that the fix is working. In that case, the defect is then closed. The second use cases where Polarion is used to track software requirements and the safety-related project for traceability to implemented source code must be shown. It starts with the software requirement getting approved and ready to be implemented. The requirement gets assigned to the software development team, where they start implementing the source code. During the implementation of linked resource gets added to the header element for each function and class that are created in the context of the requirement. The linked resource is a specially formatted comment that includes the software requirement ID. Once the source code is ready, the developers commit the code to their software version control solution like Git or SVN and a new revision is created. Committing the code triggers the Polarion parser on the new and updated code for the configured source code languages Polarion, then updates the software requirement with the new linked resources to functions and classes that were created for it. And finally, the third use cases where GitLab merge requests are initiated and tracked from Polarion, where user stories are managed. It starts with the user story getting approved and ready to be implemented at the same time. The software development team creates a dedicated branch for the master branch that will be used for tracking the source code changes done in the context of the user story. Once the source code is updated, developers commit the code to GitLab and add the user story ID to the commit message. Committing the code creates a new revision of the code and updates the user story and Polarion with a new linked revision. The user story can then be analyzed, verified, and validated to make sure it was implemented as intended, and merge request is initiated from Polarion for merging the dedicated user story branch to the master branch. The merge request gets created in GitLab where it can be analyzed, approved, and executed on execution. Polarion gets notified and updates the merge request status to merge. This concludes the Polarion integration with software version control overview topic. Thank you for watching.